Journey to the Past. Chapter 1, Part 2. These heroes don't have friendly costumes. They don't have a pretty, almost delicate face like Ice Prince, or a respectable air like Almost Ingenium, or a bright smile like Floaty Girl. They're dressed in dark colors. A living shadow peers at Izuku over the bird hero's shoulder. The taller hero has 6 arms, some of which sprout eyes and mouths at the ends instead of hands. Neither of them will tell him their names. Izuku thinks they're both incredibly cool. Izuku was almost attacked by villains, but he is already brainstorming possible hero names, unfazed by the near miss. The taller hero could be Duplaman, Muscle-Bound, or Shift Hands. The bird hero could be Reaper, Dark Soul, Blackbird, or Raven. "Can I have your autograph?" Izuku blurts before the villains have hit the ground. He's not worried about them. These two are capable of handling them. Blackbird pauses, even as his shadow preens at the attention. "I don't know if that is wise." "I don't see the harm," says Shift Hands. Izuku shoves his notebook at Shift Hands. He looks down at the blank page, pen held in one of his many hands, and then says, "Ah, now I see." "Have you given an autograph before?" Izuku says. "Yes," Shift Hands says slowly. "It's just... we walk a shaded path," Blackbird says. "One day the shadows will retreat and you will be beside us, bathed in sunlight, but for now, we must remain a mystery." Izuku glances from Blackbird to Shift Hands. Pardon?" "You're just being cryptic to confuse him," Shift Hands accuses. Blackbird sticks his beak into the air. "We were told not to give anything away." "An autograph isn't giving anything away. Not if we do it right." Shift Hands seems to think for several moments before finally scribbling something down. He passes the journal to Blackbird, who also signs it. His shadow curves over his shoulder, peeking at the signature, and bursts out into coughing laughter. Blackbird hands the journal back. Not every hero agrees to give him their autograph, so Izuku gives them his best toothy smile, so wide it hurts his cheeks, and says, "Thank you, and thank you for saving me, heroes." "This light," Blackbird says. "It's blinding." Shift Hands nods solemnly. "It's the same smile, but it's also... so much more. I will cherish this sight for years to come." "I wish I had a camera," Shift Hands agrees. Izuku cocks his head to one side. "Huh?" Shift Hands ruffles his hair. His broad palms are large enough to span the width of Izuku's face. "Don't worry about it," Shift Hands says. Izuku opens up his journal to see what his signatures are. It reads, "Number 6, and The Ghost of Christmas Yet to Come." Somehow, he doubts that these are their real names. Should he keep the names he came up with, or refer to them as Number 6 and Ghost in his notes? The latter is more accurate, but he was getting attached to Shift Hands and Blackbird. He puts his journal back into his bag. He's not surprised that, when he turns back around, the alley is empty save for bags of rotting garbage and faint bloodstains on the brick walls. Izuku recognizes the tall silhouettes shadowed by the setting sun before they have turned around. It's not the two-toned hair or the detailed armor. It's the quiet dignity with which they hold themselves, the slope of their broad shoulders, the way they stand like they will not be moved. Izuku should look for villains, since his friends only appear when there is danger near, but he can't take his eyes off them. He runs, backpack thumping noisily with every step, and the two heroes turn. "Ah," says Ice Prince. "It seems we lost track of time." "We miscalculated," corrects Almost Ingenium. "Surveillance doesn't usually eat up so much time, but we forgot to take into account how unfamiliar with the landscape we are." Izuku steadies himself with his hands on his knees. "You're here!" "You should be hurrying home," says Almost Ingenium. Izuku has a dozen questions he wants to ask. All the words try and come out at once, and he chokes on his syllables, spluttering up at his heroes. Ice Prince drops a hand on his shoulder. It's hot, like he's just climbed out of the bath. The warmth seeps into his skin, even through Izuku's winter uniform. "Breathe," Ice Prince says. Izuku sucks in several rattling breaths under their careful watch. They don't hurry him or move along to do something more important elsewhere. They're patient. They're here. "What are you doing here?" Izuku demands when his breathing evens out. "Patrolling," says Ice Prince. "Do you patrol here regularly? What hero agency do you work under? Am I going to see you around here again?" Ice Prince looks to Almost Ingenium for guidance. Almost Ingenium says, "That isn't information we can give out to civilians." "You can't even tell me where you work?" Izuku narrows his eyes at Ice Prince. "Can you at least tell me your hero name?" "I'm sorry," Almost Ingenium says. "We can't do that." "A few of the others already have," Ice Prince says. "I know. We can't change that, but that doesn't mean we can just be reckless." Izuku is mentally recording everything they say. Pro heroes aren't secretive, not to fans in the media, unless they're asked a case-sensitive question, and Izuku only wants to know their names, their agencies, and how to support them. The only way their secrecy might make sense is if they were underground heroes with quirks that made it difficult for them to operate if they were well known, but neither Ice Prince or Almost Ingenium look like conventional underground heroes. Neither of their costumes are designed for the dark, and with their marketable styles, they have the potential to be incredibly popular. Agencies would probably encourage them to go public. Plus, their quirks are more suited for daytime activity. Ice Prince's quirk especially would be difficult to keep secret, given how ice powers are. So why can't Izuku know something as simple as their names? When Izuku looks away from his hands, twisting and untwisting in his uniform shirt, he finds the heroes staring at him with unreadable expressions. If he didn't know any better, he would say that they almost looked fond. "Ah!" Izuku waves his hands in the air. "I did it again. I'm always getting in trouble with my teachers for mumbling aloud like that. I didn't even realize. I just got stuck in my head and don't realize. I'm sorry." "It's fine," Ice Prince says in a flat voice, but he's smiling, faintly. Flat is his default, Izuku thinks. It makes him seem very cool. Untouchable. Like nothing could bother him. Izuku is jealous. His voice is all wobbly and high-pitched, and he mumbles and rambles whenever something strikes his interest. He'll never be a cool type hero like Ice Prince. "Your curiosity and analytic nature will be valuable when you're older," Almost Ingenium says. Ice Prince glares at him. "What? That isn't anything out of the ordinary to say. Those are both worthwhile traits that anyone in any career would find useful." Izuku says. "You should be getting home," Ice Prince says. "It'll be getting dark soon." "Will I see you again?" Izuku asks. The heroes exchange unreadable glances. "Yes," Ice Prince says. "You will. I promise." Hero Journal number 10. They look the same as I remember. I thought I had been exaggerating how pretty Ice Prince was, but he's still so handsome and Their hero costumes haven't changed either, even if Almost Ingenium was wearing more of his armor this time around. This is further confirmation that the heroes all know one another. How many are there? How do they know one another? Hero agencies don't normally employ so many pro-heroes at once. Are they friends? Did they go to school together? Are they united in a similar cause? Why doesn't anyone else know that they exist? "What are you doing, Deku?" Izuku folds his arms over the desk to hide his sketches, but Kacchan shoves his hands aside and wrestles a sheet of paper free. He holds it up and sneers. Izuku has drawn Ice Prince staring at some point in the distance, the wind tugging through his long hair, flecks of ice creeping up one side of his body. The drawing is in pencil. Izuku was planning on coloring it that afternoon and taping it into his journal. "What the fuck, Deku? An imaginary boyfriend?" The kids behind him snicker to themselves. Izuku feels very small. "Give it back!" Izuku makes a grab for the drawing, but Kacchan holds it up even higher and shoves Izuku back down in his seat with one hand. Kacchan peers at the other drawings. Alien Queen's black eyes, and Almost Ingenium's armor, and Blackbird's billowing cape is just visible, poking out beneath Izuku's arms. Kachan wrestles free the drawing of Alien Queen. "Who is this?" he demands. "She's a hero," Izuku says. "She's my friend." "What's her name, then?" Kachan asks. "Alien Queen." Kachan stares at him for a long moment, something twisted up about his expression, before he shoves at Izuku's desk. It skids back, the metal feet scraping loudly against the floor, and Izuku is shoved back with it. "Fuck off," Kachan says. "How do you know her, then? There's no pro-hero called Alien Queen." She's a hero. She's a hero and she's my friend." "Pathetic," Kachan says. "Fucking pathetic. No one wants to be around you, so you have to invent imaginary friends." "They're not imaginary," Izuku says. "Oh yeah? You going to introduce me to your friends, Deku?" Even if he wanted to, Izuku doesn't think he could. They never stick around for long. They're not his friends in the way that Kachan was his friend, playing together on the weekend and walking to and from school and sharing everything from lunches to All Might action figures. No one else knows that they exist. Izuku's shoulders slump. Kachan laughs, and it's a rough sound, a mean sound, and makes their classmates, watching from neighboring desks, laugh with him. Kachan looks down at the drawing of Ice Prince again, considering, before ripping it in half, and then quarters, and then in eighths. He throws the pieces over Izuku. When Izuku starts crying, Kachan rolls his eyes and stalks back to his own desk. He shoves the drawing of Alien Queen into his uniform pocket. That night, Izuku tries to tape the drawing back together, but it doesn't look right. He gives up and throws the pieces in the bin. He never gets the drawing of Alien Queen back. He meets Invisible Girl and Ninja Warrior next, which leads to Izuku barricading himself in his room and theorizing all weekend about heroes working in pairs versus in teams versus individually. Ninja Warrior distracts and baits the fighter-type villain before Invisible Girl pounces on him from behind. The villain goes down hard. Invisible Girl cheers and, assumedly, throws her hands into the air. Ninja Warrior smiles, looking to his right, and freezes upon seeing Izuku. "I knew what we were getting into," Ninja Warrior says slowly. "But holy shit." Invisible Girl follows his line of sight, spots Izuku, and squeals. Izuku jumps back in fright. "He's so cute!" She skips forward. From the bouncing of her gloves, he assumes she's jumping up and down. "Hey, how old are you, sweetheart? You must still be a few years off from UA. "UA?" Izuku repeats. The bouncing stops. "High school in general, I mean. We went to UA, so it's easy to forget other schools exist. Why, do you want to go to UA? There's something in her tone that makes him think he's missing something. These two attended UA. Did the others attend UA too? If only UA's information was available to the public, then he could go digging and find their real names. "Everyone wants to go to UA, Izuku says. "But their admission rate is so low, I'd be impossible to get in." "You never know," Invisible Girl says, and then laughs like she's said something funny. They don't know he's quirkless. The realization is like a jolt of ice through his stomach. Izuku doesn't tell people if he can help it. People in his life will always find out. At school, you're asked what your quirk is right after your name, and Izuku is kind of infamous for being quirkless. None of the heroes have asked his quirk yet. Izuku won't volunteer that information on his own. Ninja Warrior frowns, his tail thumping at the asphalt like the foot of a rabbit. A nervous tick. Invisible Girl notices Ninja Warrior's silence and elbows him in the side. "What's up?" "Just..." Ninja Warrior looks at Izuku. There's something twisted up about his expression. Something almost amused, almost fond, but pained too, like looking at Izuku hurts him. "Were you always this small?" There's a tense pause, and then Invisible Girl laughs again. This isn't the easy, feminine laughter of before. This is a manic sound, this side of too sharp. "You hit your head back there, honey. All kids are small, remember? You don't know what you're saying." "Right," Ninja Warrior says, shaking his head. "Right. Kids are small and they grow up and they're not small and they can handle themselves. They turn into scary teenagers or adults that no one can touch." "Are you okay?" Izuku asks, slowly. I've been in some strange, stressful situations lately, Ninja Warrior says. Don't worry, kid. I hope everything works out, Izuku says. You're sweet, but we have to be going, Invisible Girl says. She tussles his hair and then tugs Ninja Warrior back down the street. Why do the heroes keep ruffling his hair? What is it about him that draws mysterious heroes to him and then compels them to save him and mess with his hair in equal measure? See you later, honey, Invisible Girl shouts over her shoulder, Ninja Warrior stumbling over his feet to keep up with her. They disappear around a corner. Izuku gives chase, but when he rounds the corner, he finds a wide, empty street. Neither hero is in sight. The heroes that save him every few months should be famous. They're the kind of heroes that people should sit up and notice. But no one else knows who they are. Izuku has dozens of theories, some more plausible than others. Currently, his top 5 working theories are: 1. These heroes do covert operations. Underground heroes stay out of the public eye for the most part, but maybe these heroes are on another level, dealing with conspiracies and terrorist threats and all kinds of classified things that are not safe for public consumption. This theory is undermined by the fact that A. None of them, aside from Blackbird and maybe Shift Hands, possess the kind of quirk suited for covert hero work, and B. Izuku isn't worth this amount of effort. 2. Izuku received an untreated brain injury when he was younger. Kacchan knocked something loose in his head, and now Izuku is dreaming of heroes swooping in and saving him. He hates this theory. 3. This is an elaborate practical joke or social experiment. Either someone is watching and laughing at his expense, or this is a drawn-out experiment testing to see what the average child would do when faced with regular villain attacks and hero interactions. Izuku doesn't know why the joke or experiment might continue on for years. His reactions aren't especially noticeable. He has grown a little more sure of himself, a little less likely to startle at loud noises or panic when confronted with danger, but he hasn't changed that much. Surely the experiment would have plateaued by now. 4. He was influenced by someone's wild quirk years ago, possibly a child without full control of their power, that has made him hallucinate random heroes and villains. Although, Izuku doesn't know anyone whose quirk is powerful enough to accidentally affect someone for years, and he doesn't know anyone that would purposefully waste that much energy on him. 5. This is the result of a latent quirk, Izuku's latent quirk. This one hurts too much to even consider. He cannot let himself hope, not again, not after years of crushing disappointment and grief. It would be a double-edged sword, too, to discover after years of torment that he does have a quirk, but it is impossible to prove to those around him, and it is useless for heroics. He scraps each theory almost immediately. His friends feel solid and real when they pull him out of danger, when they scoop him up and carry him to safety, when they crush him to their chest in a desperate hug before dropping him, as though shocked by their own actions, as though remembering they're hugging a strange, quirkless child rather than a loved one. Izuku can't believe that his heroes are anything other than real. The van jerks as it barrels over a speed bump. Izuku is thrown against the hard edge of the door. The other person in the back of the van, a man in a fox mask, laughs at Izuku's frantic, winded inhales. Izuku's hands are tied behind his back, but he manages to get his feet under him and push himself upright. Fox laughs even harder when he sees blood drip down Izuku's temples and into his lashes. His whole face feels wet with blood and tears and spit that leaks down his chin from the coarse rope stuffed in his mouth. Fox reaches for him. Izuku flinches back, but there's nowhere to go. A hand clamps down on his shoulder, keeping him in place. Fingers drag over the wound on his head. Fox holds them up, examining the red sheen of his fingertips, before sliding his fingers into his own mouth and sucking. Izuku starts crying. He wants to be strong, but he's so scared. Fox grins around his fingers. You taste so sweet. I always knew you would. Izuku curls up against the door. He imagines Floaty Girl tapping the van and making it fly up into the air so all the bad guys slide right out the door, away from him. He thinks about Blackbird descending on the van like a bat. His shadow would smash through the window and pull Izuku to safety. He thinks about Alien Queen melting the door clean off its hinges so Izuku could scramble out and run for safety. He thinks about All Might. He wants All Might to be here, to let him know it's all right. He would rip the door off and pull Izuku into his strong arms. He would be smiling, even as he knocked the villains out with a single punch. Then he would pull the ropes off and carry Izuku all the way home to Mum. Mum. She must be so worried. Aww. Fox coos. He pulls his fingers out of his mouth. They're spit shiny. All trace of Izuku's blood is gone. Swallowed. What's wrong, little bunny? Where's that big, bright smile? Where's your bounce? Not so can-do anymore, are you? The van slows and then stops, but the engines keep vibrating beneath them. They must be idling at a red light. Izuku pushes himself up and lunges for the cloth blacking out the windows. If he can signal to a passing car, then they can call the heroes. Fox catches him by the hood and yanks him back. Izuku chokes. Fox's arms wrap around his middle. Izuku can feel the hot breath ghosting against the back of his neck. Fox says something terrible, but Izuku is deafened by his own heartbeat. He thinks the shout and thump from the front seat are hallucinations at first, but then the engine switches off. The front doors open and slam closed. Fox doesn't notice, but Izuku does. Are they not at a red light? Have they arrived at their destination? The back door is ripped open. Fox jumps to his feet. A man with purple, slicked back hair glowers up at them. What the fuck do you think you're doing? How did you... Fox cuts off mid-sentence, clapping a hand against his mouth, but it's too late. His eyes glaze over. His shoulders slump, all the fight drained out of him. Let go of him and exit the van, says the purple-haired hero. Fox drops Izuku and stands. His face is blank. He robotically climbs out of the van. The hero sweeps Fox's feet out from under him and restrains him. Go to sleep, says the hero. Fox closes his eyes against the asphalt and dozes off. The man approaches the van slowly, hands open. Are you all right? Izuku looks at him with wide eyes. He makes a muffled sound behind his gag. Shit, right. The man pulls out a pocket knife and climbs into the van. Izuku forces himself to hold still when the man crouches down in front of him and takes hold of his jaw so he can cut the gag free. He severs the ropes around Izuku's arm and legs before stepping back out of his personal space. That was mind control, Izuku says. The hero won't look at him. Yes, it was. I won't use it on you, though. I didn't think you would, Izuku says. The hero blinks at him, almost surprised, though Izuku doesn't know why. He saved him. Izuku is still reeling from the after effect of panic, but he's already picked out a name for this hero. The Operator. The Operator gives Izuku a piggyback ride home. When prompted, he talks about his quirk and the design elements of his costume. He doesn't comment on how violently Izuku is shaking. He even asks questions about how Izuku is doing at school, and manages to sound genuinely interested rather than politely detached, unlike most of the adults Izuku meets. Villains try and attack me all the time, Izuku says into the Operator's high collar. But it's never been this bad. None of the villains have managed to actually grab me before. The Operator's hands tighten and then slacken around Izuku's knees. I'm sorry, I should have gotten there sooner, and I should have kept a better watch on those villains. It's okay. You came. That's what matters. A thought occurs to Izuku suddenly. Hey, Operator, you know the others, right? He snorts. Operator? It's what I'm naming you, since you weren't going to tell me your real hero name, right? You don't seem like the type to reveal that. A pause. No, it's not a good idea. There's a long pause. Izuku's vision is blurry. They pass a park and the cluster of trees swim together into one wet, leafy blob. Izuku closes his eyes. Most of the others didn't tell me their names either, he says. I've been making up names for them too. Do you think they'd mind? Can I hear the names you've come up with? There's Floaty Girl, Ice Prince, Red, Grenades, Shift Hands, Blackbird, Invisible Girl, and Ninja Warrior. Oh my god. The operator sounds delighted, like Izuku has personally handed him a gift. Ninja Warrior. Ice Prince. What? You really went with Invisible Girl? She's a girl and she's invisible. I couldn't be bothered being very creative that day. Neither could she, apparently, mumbles the operator. Izuku doesn't know what to make of that, so he continues. And now you're the operator. Why did you decide on operator? Because you control people, kind of like the way olden-day telephone operators controlled phone calls. We watched a documentary about old technology in class a few weeks ago. I considered naming you the Puppeteer, but that sounds menacing and you're not menacing. You're a hero. Heroes should sound cool. If fear hadn't left him feeling so burnt out, and his head didn't throb with every step, Izuku would probably be using this opportunity to pry the hero for information. But Izuku is content with curling up against the warm, well-armored back and enjoying the attention. Hey, Midoriya? Izuku hums to show he's listening. He's too out of it to question how the operator knows his name, even though Izuku hadn't introduced himself. I'm glad I met you. Izuku's eyes slip shut. I'm glad I met you too. Hey, can I have your autograph? The operator laughs. Sure. Izuku sleeps through the rest of the walk. He doesn't even wake when the operator brings him home and wards off Mum's frantic worrying. When Izuku wakes the next morning, Mum sweeps him up into a hug and plants careful kisses along his tender forehead and cries into his hair. Izuku clutches at her and finally breaks down. When they finally pull apart, Mum sets about making an extra-large breakfast. She lets him have the day off school to recover. As she bustles around the kitchen, Mum gushes about the kind, handsome hero that rescued him. Izuku chokes on his glass of water. I knew they were real. Mum turns to him, spatula in hand. Izuku? My heroes, the ones who keep rescuing me. I knew other people could see them too. Are you talking about the Ice King? Mum asks. Your imaginary friend? Izuku shakes his head. No, Mum, these heroes that keep rescuing me, they aren't imaginary. The hero yesterday proves it. I bet if we Googled him, he wouldn't have any results. Mum turns off the stove. She's taking him seriously now. What did he say his name was again? He said... Izuku falters. He didn't say, actually. I named him. Mum stares at him. Izuku pushes his plate away and feels, suddenly, very tired. Maybe he's one of those underground heroes? Mum says gently, like she's trying not to hurt his feelings. They usually aren't very public, and you did have a head wound, honey. Right. Of course. After breakfast, after Izuku inches towards Mum until she notices his embarrassed expression and sweeps him up into another hug and gently pats his hair until he feels better, he tracks down his notebook. It's on the desk. He doesn't remember leaving it on the desk. He flips it open to the last used page. There's an autograph. A new autograph. Thank you. The operator. What is the operator thanking Izuku for? Izuku doesn't say it out loud, but these dozen or so heroes are his friends. His only friends. School is a lesson in isolation, but Izuku can duck into a bathroom stall and open up his notebook and see drawings of his friends, see their smiling faces reminding him to never give up hope, and be reminded that he's not alone, even if it's been months since he last saw them. Sometimes it's less than a week between meetings. Sometimes it's half a year. After these long absences, he's always relieved to see them again, and only then, when they're in front of him, does he admit that he was scared that they would disappear out of his life forever. Podficker's notes. Thank you all so much for joining me. I genuinely can't believe it, but we're actually pretty close to 500 subscribers, and if you all have any suggestions for something that I could do for us all to celebrate, I'd love to hear it. It's been a wonderful journey so far, and I am really looking forward to continuing on with you all. I'm really glad that we get to meet Shinso in this part. The way that the author handled the kidnapping van rescue scene is one that really sticks out to me. In particular, the line that always sticks in my head is when Izuku says that Fox says something terrible, but Izuku's deafened by his heartbeat. For some reason, just the way that that's phrased sticks out to me and gives me chills. I'm, of course, very much a fan of angst and hurt comfort, so I love that scene, how creepy it is, and how Shinzo rescues him. And I also really love the conversation that they have afterwards. We also get some interesting interaction with Bakugo, which I'm sure is going to come up later. If you've enjoyed this story, please don't forget to let the original author know. If you've enjoyed my podfic, please let me know, either with a like or a comment down below. And if you want to be notified when future chapters go up, don't forget to subscribe. Thanks for joining.